They're the only ones.
Yeah.
Literally just apply that heuristic to everything you do, and you can do no wrong.
You are now listening to the Creative Juice podcast brought to you by IndiePRO.io.
What's up, Indies? Welcome back to the Creative Juice podcast. This is the podcast where we cover growing and monetizing a fan base and building a music career with marketing strategies that are working right now based on what we see every single day inside our music marketing agency and across our community of thousands of artists and bands. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. This is episode 378. I'm your host, Jack McCarthy, and with me as always is Circa. Cirque, what's up, dude?
What's up?
It was a wonderfully sustained note.
Thanks. I've been taking singing lessons, dude.
So good. So good. It's true.
Yeah, no, I have.
Today, we're going to talk about superpowers, specifically a superpower that I think every artist needs to keep in the back of their mind, especially as they grow. Can you guess what it is?
Laser vision.
It's not laser vision.
Flying.
3 times is a charm.
Being really pretty.
That is a superpower, but it's not the first one that I was thinking of.
Okay. Why don't you tell me instead of me trying to guess?
Today, we're going to talk about staying detail-oriented.
Okay, damn. I'm glad you said that because my next guess is going to be having rich parents.
Also a superpower. Also a superpower. Something we wanted to talk about on the show today that I think a lot of artists lose sight of as they grow, and I wanted to impart on you guys to not lose sight of as you grow, is staying detailed oriented. This is truly a superpower. This is an attitude of like, whatever, there's room for waste here, is what separates good from great when it comes to building music careers. And specifically on this episode, we wanted to get a little bit tactical about small tweaks or small steps that you can take in your music marketing that have big outcomes that compound over time in terms of how your fans recognize you, how they stick around, how they engage with you, the overall audience that you're building, and how you keep them in your world. And I think the level of attention to detail that I see larger artists miss out on is part of the reason that they lose opportunities with the fans and communities that they've built versus like the hungry, smaller, scrappier artists that really put a lot of care and effort into making sure that their fans know that they're in this with them and that they're, trying to build something that everyone is a part of and really trying to build community. I think that's really what like the crux of this episode is about, is like how you build community with small tweaks and how that level of attention to detail and that care plays into it.
I concur. And speaking from personal experience, I would say that like it is the small details, the little rituals that like the best just never not do. I think Hormozy actually, we're just going to glaze Hormozy the whole rest of the life of the podcast, but I think Hormozy talked about it. It's like the best never don't do the basics. And it's those little small details, the little parts of tasks that really keep up the facade of everything is working and running and is immaculate, is in perfect working condition. Once the details falter, the big tentpole things can be eroded away by just the lack of attention to detail.
Yeah, that's true. What kind of inspired this for me was actually I heard Dan Martell talking about like small, scrappy companies and how they're attached to the dream versus larger companies. Eventually, like all they have is their KPIs and they lose sight of like why they were really doing the thing to begin with. And it struck me because I was thinking about artists who are just like, man, if I only had a few people that cared about my music and that my music had an impact on them. And then all of a sudden that artist goes from having a few to having, a few thousand to a few 100,000 to maybe 1 million or more. And if you can stay attached to the reason that you wanted your music to make an impact on real people. These are not numbers. These are human beings on the other side of the internet or the world or however you're communicating with them. If you can stay attached to that, then taking these tactical sort of detail-oriented type steps to keep those people locked into that, I think is really what separates like good from great. And that's sort of like the whole thesis of this episode.
I'd have to agree.
So I wanted to talk about like a few examples that I've seen in the wild, and hopefully these convict some of you to apply similar or maybe the exact tactics to your own marketing if you haven't, or examine your marketing for similar type things and apply them as well for the fans that you're building. The first one is, this is crazy, man. Like, I probably shame so many email marketing systems on the podcast, but I see so many email campaigns from artists hit my inbox where they don't even address me by name. Same with text. You're collecting data for a reason. When you email me, use my first name in the freaking email, dude. Like,
yeah, if I gave it to you and you don't use it, piss.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Why'd you ask for it? Who are you selling it to, guy?
Everyone's favorite word is their name, right?
Yeah.
Use the data that you collect when you address people online, specifically in emails and text is what I'm talking about here. I see this all the time missed out on by major artists. Literally, I would say 9 out of 10 emails are not using the simple first name merge tag in email autoresponders. And I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, stop it. Attention to detail.
And I mean, if you're not using it, it is okay for an organization to have a policy of like, well, since this isn't reliable, we don't use it because we don't want to deal with like anyone ever seeing like a merge tag or a default. And I get that, but like your shit comes across as the default anyways. So if the worst case scenario is that someone's going to see a default, I don't get your logic. I understand. I respect your decision. I don't get your logic.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. 100%. That's like tactic number 1. Very simple, very simply applied. And maybe it applies to 9 out of 10 of our listeners, like it applies to 9 out of 10 of email marketing campaigns that I see in my inbox. I hope it doesn't. But man, if it does, start using your subscribers' names in your email copy. Just do it. It's going to make a big difference. It's going to make people feel like you actually give a shit about emailing them and that they're not just a number on a list. And that matters. And speaking of which, the second one here is like personalize your messaging a bit more. Again, we collect data and we track the fan journey for a reason. Show your fans that they know, or show your fans that you know where they've been with you. If you've got customers, speak to them like you know that they're customers. If you've got people who came out to your last tour and you know that they came out to your last tour, speak to them with that confidence. Again, you collect data for a reason. And if you don't, like, then this doesn't apply to you, but you can start collecting the data. But if you do, you should use it and you should let your fans know that you're aware of where they sit in your fan base and that you appreciate them. This is like appreciation based stuff. Small things that you can make that make a big impact on like the mindset of your fans.
I would say it's super important. This isn't necessarily something that would slip as much, but I presume that you never did this if you're not doing it now because it's just so easy to maintain.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally. These are little, if you're looking for a leg up on something you would not already doing, that's a great place to look.
Ooh.
There's little details like that.
Ooh, dude, I'm so glad you said the phrase get a leg up because this next tactic is I think a great one. I'll get numbers for this at some point and we can do a whole email marketing audit episode again, like we periodically do. But I would guess when it comes to subject lines in email marketing, they pretty much all fit the category from artists of like out now or on sale now or available now or coming soon.
Just try not to put any temporal classifiers in your subject line and see how that smacks.
What I was going to specifically bring up is rather than using declaratives in your subject lines, ask more questions of your fans in as many ways as you can. But here's a really great example. We use this one all the time, so this is super tactical. If you're running a sale, for example, rather than, you announce the sale and maybe your subject line in the first email is like huge sale or something like that, 50% off my store, whatever it might be. The temptation when it comes to like attention to detail and like level of care that you put into things, and I see this all the time, this isn't just me talking, I see this all the time, is the follow-up emails will be like, a little time left to get 50% off, 50% off still, or the exact same subject line as the first email. Ask more questions. Just use something simple like, did you miss this? Or did you catch this? Lean into like curiosity that your fans might have and ask more questions. I think that this is like a really simple one that humanizes you. Again, like it makes you less of a megaphone and more of like a communicator.
Yeah. I think also like one other thing is that this is just going to happen. I don't even have to guess that this has happened. It's just like given enough time, this will happen to you. Because you will stop trying to write better subject lines. You just will. You're just probably not going to keep up a student mentality and try to optimize your subject lines. You're probably going to like hit a few. If you ever optimize them, you're going to do some A/B testing. You're going to find some patterns that yield outsized success. And then you're just going to like yeet those patterns or the general flavor of those patterns every time you write an email instead of like being scientific about it for very long.
Yeah.
And I know from experience, dude.
Same.
So
Same.
yeah. And so that's like something you can go back to the well with like periodically. Like you can yield results. You can do better.
For sure. Yeah. I bring up specifically like asking questions as like a great way to be able to do that. Right. And this goes beyond just subject lines too. And so does your point about like you stop trying to get better at copy in general. Like you find the patterns that work for your business and then you use those and you repeat them. But a cool way that you can keep it fresh and keep it intentional is by asking questions, because the questions that you ask are most likely going to be relevant to a specific point in, period in time that you're asking about. You're probably not going to ask your fans about the tour that happened 2 years ago in an email that's happening right now. I mean, maybe you would, but that's most likely would be like the edge scenario. The questions that you ask will be relevant in time. And that makes fans feel like they're part of something that's going on presently and not just like, a number on an email list again. You can see a lot of the threads of this topic are all based around like the way that you message and present yourself out there to your audience.
Yeah.
The last one that I wanted to talk about, and man, there's so many examples of this, but I wanted to pick a few that I just like see out there in the wild that are like either really bad examples of staying in, like tapped in and intentional and having attention to detail versus like really good examples of it. And this is a really good example. YouTubers are amazing at shouting out fans. Like I see this all the time on live streams and in videos. Most of my favorite YouTube channels, if they have like a membership, whether it be a Patreon or something like that, at the end of the video, they'll have the scrolling list of all of their members that support what they're doing. And I've always thought like, man, artists could learn so much from that, because I've never or very rarely see artists follow that. And it's such an easy way of showing your fans like, hey, I care about you. You're in this thing. We're building this together. This is an amazing community and I appreciate you. Do it. Do that, especially as you grow. Do it. Don't lose sight of it. Like these are the kinds of things where like it's not hard to do, but it's easy to get away from if you're not careful. And I love that example. I mean, I see this as well with like live streams, like if you've got like a Twitch streamer or something like that, they'll go live and they'll specifically shout out a fan. If a fan gifts somebody something like a membership or something like that, I know that happens on Twitch, and you'll see people get shout outs and stuff. And that's cool. You should do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I was watching a friend and sometimes client of the agency, Baby No Money, do an interview this morning, and he was talking about how, because he lives sort of in the intersection between music and content world,
right? Yeah.
So you got your like streamers and YouTubers and TikTokers even, and then you have your music. So he's right here. He speaks to both crowds.
Yeah,
but he's alienated from the music industry because he said in this interview, he's like, yeah, they're just weird. Like they're super pretentious. They're not like down to earth and chill.
Yeah.
It's not all chill. And he was talking about how he was like in the studio with someone and they were like, yo, I'm gonna out rap you. He was like collaborating with them. And he was like, can we just like make some stuff together? Like, what are you doing? And it's like, yeah, that's the flavor of the music industry. And if you take all your cues from that class of people, it stands to reason why you don't do all the things that the content people do to appreciate their audience.
Yeah.
You think you're too cool for school. You think this isn't required of you. You think it's like not even like looked upon well by whomever, and it outclasses you. If you are in a musician class and you do things you don't see other musicians doing, you feel like an outsider. But hopefully that example from Baby No Money goes to show you that like you don't want to be associated with these people. You want to be with these other people. Like you want to be with the content class. They're chiller and they do chiller things for their fans.
Yeah, dude. And I mean, that's a really great point, and Baby No Money rules. But it's a really good point that like when you're considering these sorts of tactics that we talked about here on the episode today, if you ever have concerns that it's going to make a certain group of people have a certain opinion about you, the opinion that you should be caring about is the one of your fans and customers. And that's it.
That is it.
That's it.
Yeah, totally. I 100% agree. They're the only ones.
Yeah.
Literally just apply that heuristic to everything you do and you can do no wrong.
That's business, you know?
Dude, go look at Jeff Bezos as a friggin' tucked in dress shirt, pulled up khakis, brown belt nerd, no money, talking about how the customer, if you're just obsessed with the customer, that's all you need. You can do no wrong. It doesn't even matter if your company makes zero net profit. Just be obsessed with the customer. And dude, he just did that for 2 decades. The guy has tens of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
So like, you know, stands to reason that like he was onto something there.
I think he knew what was up.
I think he knew what was up, dude. I think he executed a pretty sick multi-decade plan and just stuck to his guns. And he was right. And he still is right. That's all you need is the customer. All you need is to impress one person. And that is the person who is paying their hard-earned money to support what you're doing.
Damn, dude.
That's it.
Damn. Yeah, that's so true. That's like business 101.
It's the shortcut to every business lesson you could ever learn.
Yeah, it's business 101, but simultaneously it's like business 401, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That's super good. These kind of tactics and this customer obsession is the type of stuff that compounds over time. And that's why we wanted to talk about it today, because I hope you guys take a fan obsessed approach, especially if you're like early in your music career growth. Do it now, because then it will carry into the time that you are growing. And if you have maybe started to slip away from that sort of mentality, I hope that this episode inspires you to pick it back up and become obsessed again about your fan base and focused on the small details and the small things that you can do to make them realize like how locked into what you've built and what they've helped you build you really are. If you can do that, you're going to build something awesome, and I hope you do.
Oh, hell yeah.
We will see you guys next time, you creative, fan-obsessed people. We'll see you next time on Creative Juice. Peace out.
Can y'all really feel us? East Coast, feel us. West Coast, feel me. Say what?